Good afternoon everyone and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all safe and well. My name is Lewis and welcome to the Saku-san YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me for today's video. Yes, before we get into the meat of the video, and today we're going to be talking about 5 jazz albums which hopefully you guys haven't seen before. I hope that's the case, and if you have, maybe it's only 1 or 2 of them that you've come across before. But as per usual, I'm going to go over my thoughts, my feelings about the albums, why I happened to purchase them, possibly, yeah, my impressions of the album, and hopefully it's going to give you an idea of what's out there in the greater world of jazz. And if it's something which you think is going to fit into your collection, at least you're going to have the opportunity to hear it for yourself. So I'm going to leave links down below in the description area for at least 1 track off each of these albums, so you can hear it for yourself. If you do like what you hear, you'll be able to pursue the album in its entirety, and yeah, you might make a buying decision as to that will fit right into my collection. So hopefully that's the case, that there's 1 or 2 albums which tickle your fancy. I really do hope that's the case. If not, you'll let me know in the comment section whether you think the whole episode was garbage or not. So before we start, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to keep this as short as I can. Starting off with welcome and thank you to all the new subscribers to the channel. Truth be told, I was a little overwhelmed. I'm not sure what's happened in terms of whether another, member of the vinyl community has let people know that I exist type thing, or it's YouTube's algorithm. I'm really not sure what's happened, but in the last 28 days, something like that, the channel has seemed to some traction has happened in terms of the sheer numbers of people who have been visiting the channel and checking out some of my content. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, slightly overwhelmed because it's not the norm. But yeah, onwards and upwards. So thank you to all those who have chosen to view 1 or 2 of my videos. I really do appreciate it. And for those who have subscribed to the channel, thank you so much for doing so. Yes, so just in case you're new around here, to put it as succinctly as possible, what I'm going to attempt to, normally I waffle on. What I try to do with this particular YouTube channel is to showcase albums, mainly jazz albums which are really spoken about in this corner of the internet. Now there are loads and loads, as you know, of content content providers, content makers on YouTube, particularly in the vinyl space as well, and in jazz as well. I'm not gonna, well, what I want to say is there's loads of choice out there. Now what I'm trying to do is slightly something different from everybody else, in terms of I'm trying to showcase albums to you which you perhaps haven't seen on YouTube discussed, or what, not in disgusting, but but nobody's actually spoken about them. It's different from the other content which other YouTubers have provided for you up until now. So that's the main aim of the channel. It's where I'm naturally inclined as well. I try not to be influenced by the main body of the consensus. I try to go my own path, and what I hope for my collection is it's going to be unique and personal to me, in terms of I buy exactly what I like and nothing else, and I'm very rarely influenced by what the greater consensus says. If my ideas and my tastes coincide with them on any particular occasion, so be it. But I tend to just go with what I like. I listen carefully to albums, jazz albums in particular, and decide over a period of time, do I really like this? Is it going to fit in my collection? And hopefully some of my habits the positive ones anyway. Hopefully they'll rub off on you, and you will have more confidence in terms of knowing what you like in regards to, let's say, jazz, for example. Knowing what you like, believing in, what resonates with you, and adding it to your collection whenever you have the time and money to do so, and the opportunity. Add it to your collection. So that's the main aim of the channel. I would want to state again, and this is mainly for those who are new subscribers, you're under no obligation to like what I like. You're really not. As I said, this is merely a presentation of what's out there. Now, if sometimes it's beneficial to me if you say in a comment section, of course, we're going to be, measured with our responses, and that we're not just going to be whining, moaning. We're going to formulate coherent arguments for and against particular albums. So if I've presented something to you and you decide, well, that's not entirely my taste and here's why, please put it in the comment section. It's going to help me refine my taste as well, knowing that somebody has a contrary or opposite view to what I do on a particular body of work. Now, yeah, I actively encourage it. So as long as it's a measured response, yeah, this is what I'm here to actively encourage, and the community as a whole is going to benefit from it. Now, in the ideal world, if one or two of my selections resonate with you, then for me, my job is done, kind of thing. I already own the actual body of work, a particular album. I already own it, so I'm fully committed. But if I can introduce something to you that you didn't perhaps know of its existence beforehand, and you add it to your collection, then I'm really chuffed. My work is done, type thing. So that's the kind of overall objective of the channel and what I'm here to do. This is my hobby after all. I'll be buying these albums anyway. I don't buy them as a means of content for the channel. I will buy them irrespective of if I had a channel or not. It's as simple as that type of thing. And probably the last point I want to make, and I've kind of slightly gone over it already. Feel free to, in the comment section in particular, or even on my Instagram account, if you've got suggestions for me, albums that I haven't up until now, shown you, or you think I would like based on the albums that I've been showing you in previous episodes, send me a message. I'll check it out and see what I think of it as well. But please understand, don't be offended if I'm not as enthusiastic for a particular album as you are. Please don't be offended. It's just a case of, we all have individual tastes, and I actively encourage that. And sometimes it's to do with timing issues in terms of, some albums resonate with people because it's associated with a particular set of events or something like that, and that's why an album resonates with them. I could hear it, just you could suggest that to me, and I could listen to it, and through my taste and my experiences in jazz, I might not have the same reaction to it. So don't be offended if I don't share your enthusiasm. Please don't. It's just a case of, I'm looking at individualism in terms of people's collection. I don't want us all to have the same albums. So please suggest albums to me. I'm going to suggest albums to you. We're going to be adults about this, and we're going to share information. Let's make this a pleasant affair. It's I'm not really into dogma in terms of you must have this. If you're somebody who's interested in jazz, you must have it, and if you don't have it, somehow you're not really a jazz aficionado. I don't subscribe to those kind of ideas. I don't like gatekeeping, and I get bored by repetition. So, but each to their own type thing, and I'm going to continue to pursue the channel in this particular way, and hopefully by watching my content, you're going to have more confidence, particularly for those who are new to jazz. You're going to have more confidence in your own personal taste, and just run with it, enjoy it. This is what it's here for. It's not to be, thought of as, we're not going to take the experience and blow it up to be something that it's not. This is a pastime. This is something to be enjoyed. Yeah, let's keep it that way. Yeah, let's try not to, enforce our ideas on other people. We may present a point of view, but we're not here to enforce them and judge people based on whether or not they adhere to our particular ideas or not. So that's the end of the the roundup and the bit of housekeeping. Let's get on with today's episode. So as per usual, I have 5 jazz albums in this case, and I'm going to be going through each one, giving you some of my reactions to these albums. If there's a background story to how I happen to buy these particular albums, I will go through that with you as well, and just give you my general thoughts. And like I said, my aim is to present you with, at least 2 or 3 albums that you may have not seen before. You didn't know of their existence, and now I've shown it to you. You might like it and pursue a copy for yourself in whatever media you see fit, whether it's, you're going to be, a download or CD or vinyl. That's entirely up to you. I've just happened to have it on vinyl, but that's no judgment on you, whether, if you choose to have it in a different format. It really isn't a judgment. I'm interested in the music primarily. That it happens to be on a particular format, in my case, that's just how it is. But yeah, don't let that don't let that fool you into thinking that I'm making judgments about any other format that you may choose to have it on. It really isn't about that. It's about the music. Okay, so the first one today, I've got some notes in front of me, so I'll be peering down periodically. The first one today is a 1980s release, and generally speaking, it's seen as German avant-garde jazz. Whether or not I would put it quite in that category, it seems to explain it. Is it more folksy? I'm not sure. You guys will decide as well. So it's a 1980 release. It's by a group called the Bhakti Jazz. And there you go. Let me show that to you. Yeah, I really do like that. So let me have a look at some of my notes. So as far as I know, this is a one-off from this particular grouping. There may well be other albums in existence. I just don't know of them at this point in time. So my overall impressions of this album is it's quite a few vocal, because this is a vocal jazz album. A lot of the albums that you tend to see on the marketplace, today, in terms of jazz vocals, are more to do with, and I'm going to be kind about this, but try to be non-judgmental. They're more kind of homages to earlier eras in vocal jazz, where to my ear, I think the vocalist in particular, hasn't got an individual sound of their own, so they mimic earlier, as best as they can, earlier singers in jazz vocal era. Now, if you like that sort of stuff, that's entirely up to you, because like I said, it's your money, it's your taste. If it resonates with you, then so be it. For me, I would prefer to have either the original artist and just stick with them, or buy something which is completely left of field of that, where a group and a set of vocalists are just doing their own thing, and you can actually hear that they're not really constrained by trying to copy somebody else. They've just got their own unique sound. And this particular album, Back to Jazz, First Step, is a really good example of that. Now, there's a, to be fair, there's a lot going on this album. It's it's not one of those kind of down tempo ones. It's a happy, joyful piece in its entirety. And I think the more that this is one of those really interesting albums where the more you listen to it, the more you'll get out of it. So on your initial run through this album, if you've never heard it before, there's immediate tracks that you would like probably resonate with. But as you go through the album, you think to yourself, wow, these guys really have a sense of who they are and what they want to do, and it's for you to kind of go on the journey with them. And I always find that journey in music always interesting when somebody's dragging you along. It's like it's not trying to be flashy or nothing. It's just saying, give me a chance, come with me on this journey, and you probably will enjoy it. And I certainly did with this one. I got a lot of respect for this album, but it may be the case that it, you know, I think your mileage will vary with it depending on what your individual tastes are. So yeah, if you're open to hearing jazz vocals in a slightly different, in a different tone to what you're used to, maybe with the older eras of jazz vocals, you may not like it. But I certainly did, because it's different, and it's it's different without navel gazing. It's not one of those self-aware albums just for the sake of it type thing. It really has a mission statement, and it just runs with it. And I thoroughly enjoy this. In my notes, I've said this is basically what the long player LP format was designed for. Instead of, singles, multiple singles, or a collection of singles, and then they make an album and it's all kind of disjointed type thing. You can tell that craftsmanship was put behind this, a clear concept and a mission statement was in place in terms of why this album was put together and why it sounds the way that it does. I think it's an absolute triumph for myself. So yeah, you'll let me know in the comment section if you agree with me. Let's see what else. As a musical experience, it held us along at a brisk pace and is over before you know it. Yeah, I agree with that. That's the early of me from days ago who wrote that. So yeah, it's like I said, I'm enthusiastic about this album, and I do think the more familiar you come with it, you find that the journey that you've been on is not only enjoyable, but it seems to be, you enjoyed yourself so much that you feel that it's over before it should be in terms of time scale. But that's the thing about time. It's elusive sometimes, particularly when you're enjoying yourself. That's why that phrase is time flies when you're having fun. That's what I had with this one. So that's the first album today, Back to Jazz, First Steps, and it's a 1980 release. There's a couple of tracks that I want you to listen to the whole thing primarily. Now, there's one or two tracks that I might leave a link to down below in the description. At this moment in time, I'm going to use the track Answer to My Soul, and hopefully that's the one what's going to get you guys interested in this particular group of artists and this particular album. But I may change my mind at the last minute. But at this moment in time, Answer to My Soul will be the track that I'm going to use for this particular sample, so you can hear it for yourself. So that's the first album today. Oh, where should I put that? There, I think. The second album today I'm not gonna lie to you, this one is gonna, yeah, it's a 1975 release. It's the album's entitled Snooze, and the album's by a pianist called Joanne Brackeen. There you go. I imagine quite a few of you have seen this album out there. Let me show you the reverse cover. So she is the wife of Charles Brackeen, the saxophonist. So let me start off with him. Again, this is an avant-garde type. Well, he's an avant-garde free jazz saxophonist, and what I've heard of his back catalogue, I can't handle it. It's too overpowering for me. I tend to have reactions which are in the negative in regards to his body of work. Now, that's not to say he's not a talented saxophonist. It's just that it's beyond my comprehension what he's doing, and I don't really see the purpose of it, to be quite honest. Well, that's a side issue. This is his wife, and absolutely, she's an extremely talented pianist, but you can see not only how her husband, well, I'm not sure which way around it actually happened, whether or not she influenced her husband's her way of playing the saxophone in his compositions, or he rubbed off on her, or they came to, they were both doing it and they came to a mutual understanding and respect for, what each one was doing. I'm not sure, but which way round it was, it's probably not important anyway. But in terms of jazz piano, this one, you really have to listen to what's going on. You're going to need higher concentrations with it. So again, this might be an album where mileage is going to vary depending on your sensibilities. I would probably say this is not one for the beginner. I think you probably find it, as a beginner, you probably find it too overpowering. And I would say to you, just try other things first. And when you've got a really solid understanding of jazz and you've decided that you've liked it, and then you can get onto the more exotic materials, which this is one of. Let me read some of my notes. Oh yeah, my observations is, and I may be right, may be wrong, maybe I read it somewhere. Her style of jazz piano definitely has its foundations in the classical genre. So I would assume from listening to this particular album and the composition and how she plays them, that she's been classically trained. That she is, yeah, she's more of a technical pianist rather than, I'm not to say she plays without feeling. That would be really unfair and it will give you the wrong impression. But you can tell in terms of technical mastery, that's at the forefront, rather than if you hear some of the other great pianists in jazz, they're more, I'm trying to think of how I describe it. There's more naturalism to how they play. That's just my impressions, and I could be wrong, but it sounds to my ears that she's been at a conservatoire and she's learnt formally how to play classical piano. That's her, the building blocks of her talent. That's where it seems to come to my ears at least, but I could be wrong, to be fair. So on this album as well, you have, and this kind of like tipped me over the edge in terms of my initial kind of why I wanted to listen to the album. Cecil McBee on bass and Billy Hart on drums. Those two, if they're part of any kind of ensemble group, I'm going to be listening to it. I'm going to give it a chance at least, and I'm glad in this occasion that I certainly did. Like I said, yeah, I'm just reading my notes here. It's not one for the beginner. So album is more, yeah, so I kind of, one of my points that I made, this is literally it's art. It's art in the musical form. It's different from other jazz albums in my collection, or the vast majority of them, because this is art in and of itself. It kind of surpasses, although it is jazz, obviously, it kind of surpasses it at the same time. It's doing something else. And that's what I find interesting about it. The level of complexity and complication is simply breathtaking. Okay. Yes. So one of the things I'm saying is, well, I've written down in my notes, if this was by any artist, and this was, because she's got other albums out there, and I will be pursuing them as I go along in my journey in jazz. Now, if this was the sole album from a particular artist, you would say to yourself, my goodness, they've nailed it. They've absolutely nailed it, and they never have to do anything else again. It's like, yeah, this is, you know, this is a representation as me as an artist. I need do no more than this, really. This is how this album feels to me. It's a statement piece. I'm sure her other albums, and I will pursue them, as I said, but I'm not familiar at this point with the rest of her body of work. I've heard, yeah, I've got albums where she's like the guest pianist type thing, but as a solo artist, I've got to go through her back catalogue and see what else is there. But as a statement piece, if this was the only thing you did as an artist, you wouldn't have to worry about your legacy in jazz or as a musician. You've done it all on this one. Oh yeah, probably a monument to a very singular talent, I've written in my notes. Yeah, can't disagree with that. And my final note in here is, yeah, I found this quite amusing. One of the tracks on here is the classic jazz standard, Old Devil Moon. Now, what I found, it's not even the tune itself, it's not the composition, it's why it's here on this album, which I think is noteworthy in the sense of, when you listen to the other tracks on this album, you realize, again, as I've written in the notes and I've said already, she's a singular talent. There's no doubts about it. But the Old Devil Moon is kind of like loads and loads, hundreds of jazz musicians have that particular composition on their album. It's a standard. But I think she has it here slightly as a Mickey take, to say, well, I can do that kind of composition if I feel like it. But in the context of the album, it feels out of place, because it's everything else it feels high art. And then when you get a track that your composition that you're really like familiar with, it's kind of like, are you taking the mickey out of me type of thing? And maybe that's what she intended. I don't know. Maybe it was like, because like I said, it feels out of place on this particular album. It's well played, but it's not the best version I've heard of Old Devil Moon in the jazz format. It's not the best version I've ever heard of it. So I'm not sure why it's there, apart from to say I can do this if I feel to, but I don't really, kind of thing. So I like the nonchalance there, the kind of like, yeah, it did amuse me. So the track that I'm probably gonna leave a link down below to is a track called Circles. I think I'm gonna use that one. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Hopefully, if you do like that particular track, you would listen to the rest of the album, see what you think. But as I said, I don't think I wouldn't recommend this to a beginner in jazz. I think you're gonna have to listen. Ideally, you would listen to a huge body of work in jazz by hundreds of different artists before you come back to this one. Yeah, I think your ideas of jazz will be skewed if you listen to this early into your journey in jazz. I just think it's kind of inappropriate. It's not necessary. I think you're trying to jump forward too quickly. But each to their own. You know, you could be new to jazz, you hear it for yourself, and you might decide, oh, I actually want that in my collection. I know now I already want it. So it's entirely up to you. But I would say for the beginner, even some intermediates, this is not to be trifled with. This album, it really isn't. But I'm really glad to get it in my collection. It's definitely a worthwhile venture. So that's the second album today, and like I said, that's a 1975 album, Joanne Brackeen, and the album's entitled Snooze. The third album today, it's been on my shelf for quite some time, and I'm sorry to say that I didn't give it more of a chance than I actually did. Just trying to find my notes in regards to it. Yeah, it's been on my shelf for quite some time, and I just kept bypassing it for whatever reason, not revisiting it, and I just forgot why I initially bought it. And well, the great thing about doing these content for YouTube is that it allows me to revisit albums that otherwise kind of get ignored on my shelf, or I forget what the actual content is and the reason behind buying it. So glad to get this one out. Again, it's a 1975 release. It's by a gentleman called Clive Alexander, but he's otherwise known as Clive Zander in this case. And this is probably the longest title for an album recently. Well, in my collection is anyway. The album's entitled Clive Zander Is Here with That Kind of Ting, Calypso Jazz Innovations. There you go. You know, on the initial kind of things to know about this album is, if you want an original copy of this particular album, it's absolutely obscene how much it is for it. Apparently it was limited release originally, so that kind of will explain it. It's a really good album, don't get me wrong, and I'm glad to revisit it. But yeah, some of the price I've seen for the originals is just absolutely startling up. But hey, if you got the money for it and you can buy the original, that's entirely up to you. So just to give you a general overview, have you ever thought of having your jazz with a touch of Caribbean flavoring to it? Now, if you've ever kind of had that thought in your head, yeah, how comes there isn't more jazz out of the Caribbean? There certainly is quite a few albums which come from the islands. If you're from North America, that's how you would refer to like Jamaica, Barbados, the islands, whereas if you're from Europe, particularly the UK, you'll say the Caribbean. So there is some jazz. Monty Alexander as well. There's quite a few artists out there. I've only got superficial knowledge of the artists and their body of work from that particular area of the world, and that era of jazz as well, because I don't think there's anything contemporary as such. Some of which I like, I'm going to be honest with you, some of which I think is quite mediocre, but I will continue my journey in that particular aspect or that particular sphere of jazz, and hopefully I will find a couple of gems in there to add to my collection. So so what I'm just reading some of my notes, particularly for those who are new to jazz or intermediates. This is an extremely joyous album. This is a really nice adventure in jazz. I got to say, yeah, just thinking about it puts a smile on my face. It was really good to revisit this one. So yeah, in terms of my overall feelings about this album, from beginning to end, and it's quite unusual, but from beginning to end, I found the whole journey with this particular album to be a really, as I said, joyous, entertaining, fun. It was interesting, and I just think most people will probably have a positive reaction to this album, and hopefully that's the case. If you are watching this video, hopefully it is the case that you're going to have a positive experience with it as well. Where you would get a copy of this now, because like I said, I've had this for years. Where you get a copy for it now, I don't know. As I said, the originals are expensive, like obscenely expensive. The reprints of this album are, they kind of Blue Note, what's it, the Poet series, that kind of money easily for it. So you can get it. It's just going to probably be a bit of an effort to get it, but certainly have a listen to. I'm going to leave a link down below so you can hear at least one track from this album. See if you like it, and if you do, have a listen to the whole thing, because again, I'd say quite unusually, I think from beginning to end, this album really does give you value for money. It's entertaining, it's an enjoyable ride. Oh, I've been really like of high praise with this. So one of the things I've written is this will get into my top 100 jazz albums due to its compositional strength, consistency, concept, and musical execution. An absolute delight. Now, I'll, just for the sake of consistency, I don't want to argue with myself in terms of that. Maybe I've been slightly hyperbolic, but you're in for a really enjoyable journey with this particular album. So I'd say give it a go, have a listen to it, see what you think. If you disagree with me, leave it in the comment section. I would totally understand if you don't, but or you have other suggestions for me for jazz artists from the islands stroke Caribbean, and that's going to help me maybe narrow down my focus in terms of what else I should pursue by way of this subgenre of jazz. So that's Clive Zander is here with that kind of ting, calypso jazz innovations, and that's the 1975 release. So yeah, happy listenings with this one. I think you're going to enjoy it. That was the third album today. The fourth album today, I suspect many of you have this album. I wouldn't really be surprised. So give me a second just to get my notes together. Now, where did I... Oh, here it is. So this is a 1974 release. It's by a gentleman who you probably would have heard of, and that's to do with his association with the Heath brothers. It's to do with his association with a couple of albums called the Piano Choir, and most notably his association with Clive Tolliver and Music Inc. As well as a solo artist. So he's been around the block. I do like his body of work. I must admit, I've got a soft spot for it. And this is a 1974 album by the jazz pianist Stanley Cowell. So let me show you the front of this one. Oh, the album's entitled Musa, Ancestral Streams. So that's the front cover, that's the back cover. I do like the cover, I really do, and it's lovely gatefold as well. So yeah, hopefully you guys are going to enjoy that as well. Not loads to read, but yeah, nice to look at. So with this particular album, things for you to consider if you're going to be purchasing it. I do tend to say mileage will vary, but in this particular case, you have to bear in mind what you're dealing with here. Now, this particular album has a particular concept, and the concept is it's stripped out solo jazz piano. So there's no accompaniment, it's just him on the piano, and it's up to you. Well, you got to decide whether or not that's a thing that you like or don't like. So in my notes, I've written, if you're the type of person who enjoys their jazz stripped down to its barest essentials, if you're the type of if you like the majority of the ECM catalog, if you've got quite a bit of that in your collection already, or you've got either one or both of the piano choir albums, you're gonna like this, just hands down. You don't need to think about it. This one's for you if you don't already have it already. So it's kind of loaded in that particular respect. It's going to be one for you. In my notes I've put it's delicate, it's exquisite. This is an album of rare beauty, and you've just got to listen to the confidence. There's just something really quite pleasing about what's going on when it's stripped down to its barest essentials, and it's just one artist giving it their all on their instrument of choice. It's just something, yeah, it's just something wonderful going on here. For me, it was a wonderful experience. Although a number of the compositions are familiar to those who know Stanley Cowell's back catalogue, because it's done in a stripped down manner. So just as a side issue, for those who are old enough to remember when MTV were getting contemporary artists to re-record some of their more kind of like popular tunes, but they would do it in a way, where they don't have their backing singers or anything like that. It's kind of in that genre. It literally does what it says on the tin. This is solo piano. So even if you know his work and you have some of these tracks on other albums, the way in which it's presented to you on this album, as it was for me, it was a unique experience, and in terms of it, just had merits of its own. So for me, a wholly valuable experience, and one I would recommend to anyone who likes jazz. It's a professional pianist doing what they do best. So give it a listen, see what you think. So that's the fourth album. The fifth album today, oh, you had a little sneak peek there. And by no means the least, I just had let me find my... This is a 1975. Oh, the track that I will probably use off the Stanley Cowell, probably, you know what, there's so many good tunes on here. I'm going to have to decide at the last minute as to which one I'm going to use, because there's 5-6 tracks I can use which are wonderful. So I'm definitely going to leave a link down below. I don't want to commit myself at this stage. I want to see how my mind is. At the time in which I put the link in, I will make that final decision as to what track I'm going to use, but I'm going to leave a link down below. So the final album today is a 1975 release by a saxophonist by the name of Clifford Jordan. There you go. And this one's on the Steeplechase label. So probably those out there who are already into jazz know of his album The Glass Bead Game, something like that. And it's an album that I'm familiar with, and I've listened to it loads of times, and it just didn't resonate with me at all. I didn't like it. But this particular album, which is called Firm Roots, I'm just bewitched by it. I really do enjoy this one. So on this album you have the likes of Cedar Walton on piano, Sam Jones on bass, and Billy Higgins on drum. That's always going to excite me. Again, I've kind of given it high praise and said, if there's a top 100 jazz albums from my collection, I would consider this in there. Where it fits in there, I don't know, but it should be in there. So yeah, with yeah, I would say there's a couple of caveats. Is he the best saxophonist I have in my collection? No. Is he good? Yeah, he is. Maybe this isn't the best example of his work, but I would say he's not the greatest saxophonist. Better than I'm ever gonna be and ever dreamt of, easily. But yeah, in terms of who I've got in my collection, I would say, yeah, let's be honest about it. But in terms of the composition and how, the group of musicians are playing, my God, this is outstanding. It really is. It's just. So I've written in my notes, you begin to believe you are about to experience one of the greatest jazz albums out there. The album starts so strong, two cracking tracks to open, but the compositional quality can't be. Oh yeah, so that's where the criticism is. So yeah, it starts off really strong, this particular album. It starts to peter out. So maybe they should have, how they formulated this album, they should have spread out the good tracks across the album rather than top loading them. So the A side's probably a lot better than the B side. These things happen, to be quite honest. But yes, overall, yeah, let me walk back some of it. So when this album's at its best, it is phenomenal. It's a jazz album that should be respected, and people really should give it a good listen to and see if they like it for themselves. I certainly did. That's why I own it. But I don't want to overreach how good it is. It's good, possibly very good. Yeah, try and modify your expectations. Yes, I can see that we've gone into, yeah, the memory card is losing its way. So yeah, expectations for this album, you really will enjoy it, I suspect. You may even want it in your collection, I suspect. Is it, it's very good. There's no doubts about it, and hopefully you're going to enjoy it. I'm going to leave a link down for you below. But it's a bit patchy in places, and you have to bear that in mind. And 99% of jazz albums or any genre of music is going to be the same thing, where any particular album is going to have its ebbs and flows, it's going to have its hits and misses, so you have to anticipate that. That's just the nature of things. But yes, a glorious experience when this album really gets into its flow, when it's doing what it really should be doing. It does deliver. It's just a bit patchy in places, but that's my interpretation of it. You may feel differently about it. So that's the fifth and final album for today. Thank you so much for joining me for another roundup of jazz that I happen to have in my collection. Hopefully one or two of these you haven't seen before, and you wish, from hearing it, a sample of it, you may wish to add it to your collection. Hopefully that's the case. I really will be like ecstatic if that's the case. As I said, feel free to let me know some of your suggestions out there, based on albums that I've shown you, what you think I might like, and yeah, I'd be happy to give them a listen to as well. And you might see those albums that you suggest to me in future videos, or I might just listen to them and think to myself, well, perhaps it doesn't work for my collection. But yeah, I'd appreciate it. This is all about sharing, after all, ideas, opinions. We don't all have to have the same taste, and I don't want it that way anyway. So feel free. I really appreciate it. And if there's any albums that you think that I've been super hyperbolic about, or just hyped up too much, let me know. Give me your opinion in the comment section. I'd appreciate if you don't just go like, oh, that album's trash and that's it, kind of thing, one sentence. If you kind of explain why you think something I've shown you today isn't worthy of, you know, consideration, then please let me know. Give me a paragraph at least to so I can mull it over for myself, and maybe I might come to your, you know, your way of thinking about a particular album. Yeah. So that's enough of that. Again, thank you for joining me. In the channel banner or somewhere around there, you're going to see a link to the Instagram page. If you're that way inclined, you might want to see the content I put up on there on a regular basis. It's not only, it's things, there's jazz on there obviously, but there's albums from other genres as well, stuff that I don't really cover on the channel. So you might find some of it entertaining. It might just give you a better idea of my taste in overall music, where I'm coming from, type thing. So feel free to have a look. Perhaps, you know, join me on that platform as well. It's a good means for you to communicate with me as well, if you don't want to do, you know, it via the comment section on YouTube. So it's just another means to be in contact with me. So hopefully you'll join me there. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for listening to my waffle. I really do appreciate it. And there's going to be a harsh jump cut in here because, yeah, I've been rambling for too long type thing. But I get excited. What can I say? I like me jazz type thing. So until the next episode, I have no idea at this moment what it's going to be about. But until the next episode, please look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you soon for another roundup of vinyl of some kind. All right, take care. Take it easy. All right, bye-bye. Take care.